Okay, today we're sitting down here at the intersection of US Highway 231 and Highway 11 at Whitney Junction. And I grew up in this area, so thought we would start doing a couple of little videos and posting them on the Whitney Junction area. This used to be the place, essentially. Get positioned here, and what you're going to see is the little store that was kind of the I guess the focal point of the whole community. And I knew it as Montgomery's store. It was owned by a man and his wife, and they had a house behind the store. Now the house is gone now, but the store remains. And over here, which looks like maybe a garage, that was once it was once a garage and a restaurant, and kind of a combination of things over the years. But let me get turned around here, and we will take a look at Montgomery's store. And like I say, this was once the real focal point of the whole area. This is Highway 231 that runs from, well, I think it goes all the way to Huntsville and beyond. But 231, back in the day, a lot of people, it was one of the main highways from North Alabama down to South Alabama. As a matter of fact, a lot of the missiles and rockets that were built at that were built in Huntsville during the I guess you could call the space race back in the 60s, 70s. A lot of the parts actually came down this highway. And like I say, this is Corbin's. This was Corbin's. It was at one time a filling station, a garage, and a restaurant kind of combined. And well, I guess it's still owned by the Corbin family. And of course, Highway 11 runs north and south. 11, it enters the state up there around Chattanooga, and it goes all the way down into Cuba, Alabama. And I'm not sure how far it goes. I think it runs on into Mississippi. But okay, we'll take a little trip up 231. I used to ride my bicycle down here to the grocery store, down here to Montgomery's store, and I would ride my bicycle. So today we're going to kind of backtrack and back up 231. Of course, in those days, I don't think 231 had as much traffic as it does now. It's kind of hard to say, really. But leaving Whitney Junction, we're going north on 231, and right here very shortly we will take what I believe is called Rock Crusher Road. We'll go over a little creek, McElroy. I believe this is McElroy, or part of McElroy Creek. Off to the left there was a little swimming hole, and off to the right, people would come down and pick watercresses out of the water. And this was a water plant that you could eat, cook, whatever, put in salads. But Yeah, this is Rock Crusher Road, and the reason it got its name Rock Crusher Road is up at the foot of the mountain there was a rock crusher at one time, and rocks from that rock crusher were used to build Highway 11 and 231 when they went from dirt roads to, I guess they started paving them. But I've been up and down this little hill very often. There'll be a little house up here on the left, which at one time was J.L. Montgomery's home, and he had a lot of farming around here. And on the left was a huge cotton field, cotton patch, and now it's mostly homes and that sort of thing. But at one time there was a cotton patch there. I remember picking some cotton out of the cotton field, and right up here very shortly we will stop, because this is an area where I once lived. So I once lived here in a little house. There is a garage which my uncle kept a little farm-all tractor in, a little red farm-all tractor. And back in the back was a woodworking shop, because he worked with the county, and he would make highway stakes for the county. But beyond that was a large field. Did a lot of gardening there. But this is actually the house that I grew up in, or one of the houses. And this is really amazing. Truly amazing. This is really a huge tree. It was in pretty good condition up until, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago or more, and a huge tree fell on the back of it. And of course it just kind of deteriorated from that point. Now, of course, this, when I was a kid, a wee kid, this was a yard. There were trees here. There was not really any grass. It was just a well-kept, one of the old style yards where they didn't have any grass. But this was a big yard, really. And I played out here, got a lot of memories of this place. Got a lot of daffodils. A lot of these old home sites here in the south, you can tell a home site by the number of old the daffodils and the old trees. But this was a small little one-bedroom house, and it is certainly deteriorated and basically caved in now. There's just not that much left of it. I remember there was a living room, a coal-fired heater, a bedroom, and a kitchen, and a porch, and kind of a little cooking area. So it's really changed, and of course it's grown up. You know, a lot of old homes like this, when nature will sort of reclaim what was once here. And the big tree that fell, I believe it was this tree right here. I believe this is the tree that actually put the end to the house, and basically rain and water came in, and and just over time it's fell through and destroyed. I remember playing in this little house quite a bit. That was kind of a little, I think at one time it was a chicken house, and I kind of, as a kid, I made sort of a playground out of it. And I don't know, maybe there's still something in here. Yeah, wow, this is amazing. A lot of old bottles. A lot of old bottles and stuff. Old, yeah, I don't see any childhood toys. And this was a little drive back to the field, and it's still a field. I don't know, maybe somebody may be using it. Now this is the old woodworking shop that my uncle operated. And I remember he would usually come in on afternoons or sometime on Saturdays. And I remember when I was a kid helping the parent and the kinfolks plant a garden, and had a lot of vegetables out of that. I remember strawberries, corn, pulling corn, beans. I remember picking beans out of it. Strawberries I remember, and corn. I think this end of the field maybe had more corn than anything. This was always a kind of a wooded area there, and but this here has really grown up. The trees, I think the big tree there has always been there. It's just bigger. But this whole area has really really changed. And of course there was none of these bushes. It was all clean of bushes and briars, and I played a lot. I played a lot right in here. I remember. I guess it was that tree there that I would actually play under. So that's one of the old home places. Wow, it's just amazing. Now the yard out front was usually like this. There was nothing grown up on it, and you could get out there. And I remember we would rake leaves in the in the fall, and it was always nice to smell that wood smoke, smell that leaf smoke. I don't know what we've got here. Not sure what this is. And it may be what's called, doesn't have a smell now. But it does not have any smell at all, so I'm not really sure what it is. But there's a bush that grows here in the south, and people called it sweet shrubs, and they had a great smell. And people back in the day would get out on a Sunday afternoon and walk around in the woods and find sweet shrubs and take a part of the bushes or the flowers and bring them home. This is so, I remember that porch. It's kind of funny, you have dreams about these places after you leave them. years after. It's amazing. You can have dreams about them, and you wonder why. As a matter of fact, I had one a few nights ago about this place. But it looked like it did when I lived here. But it's really weird how sometimes your mind will take you back to all this. Take you back to it. Okay, we're going to drive on down Rock Crusher Road and check out the other old home place. Of course, I rode many miles up and down this one little area of Rock Crusher Road on a bicycle. I had a little bicycle, or two bicycles, over the period of time, because we lived in this little house, and then at one time we lived in another house on down the way, an old farmhouse that belonged to my aunt and uncle. But I would ride all the way up as far as you can see, and then come all the way down and go all the way down, and sometimes I might go all the way down to Montgomery's store. Now this is where my aunt and uncle lived, Willard and Mary Beeson, and they were here many years. I think one of his brothers went to work at Redstone Arsenal, I believe in Huntsville, and they originally lived here and moved, and then my aunt and uncle, they got the house and they lived here for many years. And I've mown grass here, and I don't know, played croquet, and it was just a nice place. They had a garage, two-car garage out back, and of course there was big trees here, big trees. Water oaks, I believe they call those. And at one time there was a big cedar, but I guess it's been taken down. But they had the garage. My uncle had the garage. The last experience, and of course here again you can see all the daffodils coming up. A lot of those. The last time I was here was probably maybe 20 years ago, maybe longer than that. But I had a mobile home in here, and it extended, they pulled it in, and it covered this area and actually stuck out some. I mean, you could walk under this, you could actually walk under this end of it, because there's a slope here. But this is really, it's really grown up too. It doesn't take long for these old home places to just grow up to nothing, and Mother Nature will eventually take over. But the house, you know, it has a fairly, I don't know, the roof I don't think is that old, maybe. And a person could probably go in there now and spend some pretty good money and actually renovate, because if it doesn't leak, and you could probably go in there and make a fairly decent home out of it. You've got city or county water out here. Now you don't have, there's a septic tank, underground septic tank, that might have to be replaced, but otherwise, I mean, that house could be possibly livable. And of course, at the time that I was here, most all of this area that you're seeing now there was nobody here. It was all woodland. Basically, it was J.L. Montgomery's family. There might have been one or two other families, but I don't think there was at the time that I was here. And then we lived in the little house, and then my aunt and uncle lived in this house, and the Collette family lived through these woods here on the road, and we lived in an old farmhouse out here to the right, so we'll go out and check out the old farmhouse site. Now this place has probably, of all of them, this place has grown up the worst. At one time there was a barn right where we're looking. There was a little pond, and there was 2 or 3 other farm style buildings, and that's an interesting plant. I might have to come back later and dig one of those up and put in a pot. But all of this has really grown up. There was at one time, there was a fairly nice lawn, and a fairly nice lawn here. And there was an old farmhouse that was probably, it probably was over 100 years old or older. I mean, you're talking about an old house. All of these canes, at one time I had a little single wide mobile home right here, right in here, and the house was behind it. And my mother got a little cane from my uncle, and she was all the time putting out plants and stuff, and she put out one of those canes, and it didn't take long to create a totally cane forest. And I mean, it's basically, for all practical purposes, took up the whole area, because those canes will really grow. But this place now is full of briars and brambles, and I'm not really sure. I don't know if any of the house actually exists anymore back here. We'll go one little step or two, but these huge canes, I mean, you know, this looks like you could be in the Philippines somewhere, because these are some huge canes, and they're nice looking canes. Oh, just a total cane forest. It's just amazing. Let's get back here and see. At one time there was a fence that ran along this line, and wow, there was a fence that ran along this line, and there was a little shop. You can see it ahead. My goodness. Well, it's amazing the mess. Okay, I mean, look at this. I mean, there's a perfectly good cane. I mean, I've really never seen anything like that, except maybe in some botanical park. But I mean, you've got some canes here that you take some people out of the Philippines or some of those Pacific islands, and they could build a home. They can build I mean, look at this, it's amazing. And I was going to get a little saw and bring, because what I wanted to do was cut a few of these and put in a small bowl, and kind of have a little, well, I don't know, I think they call them lucky canes now. But wow, there is the old home. Cannot believe. I mean, this whole thing has just changed dramatically. Wow. There was an old well there to the left, and wow, an old well to the left. Well, there's water there. I see maybe some old electronic parts over there that I probably tinkered with. when I was a teenager. Lived here when I was a teenager, so you know, you've got some old electronic stuff, probably an old TV or some kind of an old radio. And this was a big 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe a 4 or 5 room house. And I mean, it seemed huge. It seemed a lot bigger then than it does now. But I'm really amazed. Really amazed. And I've had dreams of this place. Kind of haunting dreams, really. Haunted dreams. And there was some buildings out back, I think at one time, back in the day when my mother's sister and her husband's father and mother lived here. This would have been, you know, what, 100 years ago or longer. I think they had like a smokehouse, which you would kill your own hogs, and you know, you would have hog killing day in the fall when the temperature was right, and you would hang meat in one of these old buildings, which is this one back here. I think it had and that's where you would keep the meat, and you would salt it down, and I guess you kept it for the winter, but the salt would preserve it, plus it would be dried out, kind of like jerky, I guess. But this is really, it's really an immense change from what this used to be, really. I mean, in these canes, it's just like a forest of canes. And this was a little workhouse and a garage where you parked your car or whatever. And I remember cleaning up around that thing, and I remember the area back here, the area back in, yeah, back in there, that area was always wet and damp, and it looks like it still is. I guess there was maybe some underground streams or whatever that would come to the surface. But I'm really amazed with all of this. And this was the barn down here. And this is the way it looks. Wow. This field seemed, to a teenager, this field seemed a lot bigger, but there's part of the old barn, and part of it was back over here. But childhood days. And of course, down that little dirt road, the Collette families lived. Herbert Collette, his wife and kids, and then you had his mother, who lived in a house at the very end of that dirt road. So now we'll progress a little farther down the Rock Crusher Road and do a little more exploring. Now right up here on the left was another area. I must have been maybe 7, maybe younger, and lived here. There was a little road here, I believe, that went back down to a little house back down in the woods. None of this was here. There was another big home that some people lived in, and they moved to Florida, and somehow I think we wound up renting that home, but they had started an expansion or another house behind it, and they never completed it. So at some point someone came in and bought all the property, and that was the end of that. But I remember playing in those woods down there. I remember way back in the woods were fields, and sometimes maybe I or some friends, little friends, would get brave enough and we would go back there. And I remember eating persimmons. There was a persimmon tree down there, and we would go down there and eat persimmons. And otherwise we would play right here. I remember having one of those little metal pedal cars that you could set in, and I believe it was a little fire truck or something. But somebody has bought this many years ago and has really developed it. But I mean, there's nothing that is even left of what I experienced there. Now further on up Rock Crusher Road, of course, you had the Bertram family here. James Bertram was a good friend of mine. I think he lived there with his mother in his last days. I believe he died several months ago. But this was kind of later on in life. I remember fishing in that pond. And of course, here is where Rock Crusher Road ends and turns into another country road. And all that was, when I remember as a kid, was just a cutout in the, I guess it was limestone rock, granite rock. I'm not sure what kind of rock it was. But we would come up here a good bit and climb around. And we would climb to the top of the mountain. We might take a Saturday or a Sunday afternoon, climb all the way to the top, ramble all over the mountain, and go in. There was no caves here, but we would go into some big overhangs, and we could imagine all sorts of adventures rambling around up there, and we did. And you know, if the Olympics were on back in those days, we would get excited, and we would, as kids, we would go to the very top of that mountain, and there we go. Yeah, we would go to the very top of that mountain and pretend to be skiing down. And what we would do, of course, our shoe bottoms were pretty slick, and we would just slide down on our shoe bottoms on pine needles laying on the ground. Makes a pretty flat slick area. And it's amazing that we didn't break legs, break heads, crack our heads, kill ourselves, but we did that several times, and looking back on it, it was a fairly dangerous thing to do. The Tillery home was off to the left here. I mean, it's grown up. A lot of these old homes that a lot of people that I knew when I was a kid through here are dead and gone, or, you know, moved away. I've rode a bicycle up and down this road many times. And this is, I believe, is some more of the Tillery folks. Some of these people, even then, I did not know. People have moved in from Birmingham and built fairly nice homes out in here. Looks like we've got some, I believe that's wisteria, what they call wisteria in the trees. Great. It's a beautiful flower and smells really great. It's just amazing. This whole area is really expanded and modernized. That old house, and there was a Mexican guy, Domingo, and I believe he had an American wife or an American girlfriend. I'm not sure what their status was, but I remember traveling this road a good bit, riding the school bus to Springle, and riding the bicycle. I would get brave sometimes and ride the bicycle out through here. And one day we might take a trip on down this road, which works its way down to the small town of Springville, Alabama. But for now, we'll take a cut back and get onto Highway 11 and get back down to the intersection. Now, when I was a teenager, me and some boys, some friends, we created us a rock band, and there was a there was a lounge right out here on the right. I'm not sure if it's still here, but I believe it was called the Thicket. The Thicket, and I think that's where the Thicket was. But I guess it's no longer there. If it is, it's grown up. And we came over and played a couple of times at the Thicket. But it was basically a lot of these old country guys would come and they would listen to the jukebox, or if there was no live band, and you know, they would drink beer or whatever, and that was the place for quite a while. If you wanted to get a drink, you went to the Thicket. This area here is, I mean, it's really expanded. It's really expanded. When I was a kid, it was a dirt road, and then my uncle, who worked for the county, they finally got around. The county did, and they came through here and paved it, and that really helped this area grow. And I think a lot of the older people sold their property to their kids or to other people, and so you had people coming in here and building, and so it's a fairly you know, it's almost like a suburban neighborhood in the fact that you've got houses one right after the other. Right around here on the right, there was at one time a sinkhole, and I believe that's all it was a sinkhole, looking back. But somehow the rumor got around that a meteorite had hit and had created that hole in the ground. But I believe it was nothing but a sinkhole. But I remember passing this thing, riding a bicycle as a kid going past it in a school bus, and you know, you conjure up all kind of ideas, and I think it was right up here. It's probably not even recognizable. I think it was right in here, and you don't even see a hole anymore. And of course, right up here on the right was an entrance to what they call a chert pit. In the county, yeah, the chert pit's right. Well, it's back in there somewhere. But the county would they would rent property from people, and they would come out and get all that dirt to put on the dirt roads. And I remember coming over here numerous times, and me and a friend, or sometimes I would just come by myself and hunt fossils and find some pretty good fossils. Now here is a site right here at this crossroads, right there on the right, used to be Cox's Grocery, and of course it's fell through and gone, and that's the end of that. So now we're cutting back northward, and we'll get back to the crossroads, and that will be probably the end. But I never did, you know, when I was old enough to drive, I drove along this section of the road. I never did get my bicycle down here on the main highway. Northeast water supply, and I worked for them for a little while, reading water meters, helping install water lines. But this used to be the site of an old cafe, and it's gone, and now you've got this stock market. An old historic home back there that was featured in the book that I wrote on this area. And of course you've got Reeves Grove Baptist Church, the new church, and then you've got the older historic church, and then we've got the cemetery. My mother is buried there on the cemetery, in the top of the cemetery. And we missed that one, but off down there is where my grandfather and grandmother were buried. And we're back to Whitney Junction on this little exploration of this little community and my days of living there. And we will turn off here. Okay, well, I hope you hope you kind of enjoyed that little journey through that part of Whitney Junction and the community and the area in which I grew up and lived. And I saw it go from a dirt road, which a lot of these, you know, there's still a lot of dirt roads in the county, in these southern counties. I mean, you didn't have to be that old to have a dirt road. But I saw that go from a dirt road to a paved road, and have most of my childhood memories are from there, because off and on I lived off and on there. We lived off and on, like I say, in those 3 residences, and probably didn't get away from there until my college days. I guess it would have been after graduation, you know, and then I moved. Then we moved farther south here on Highway 11 and lived there for a while. So, okay, hope you enjoy, and we'll try posting some more later. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks.